Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Eye Opener Society. Thank you so much again for pushing play. Thank you for so much for joining us on this episode. Unfortunately, this episode, I don't have Hannah with me. This is kind of a special episode. For those of you who listen to the show, I'm sure you heard Timelines and Tapestries, where we had Anne Lund and Sunset Child on the show. And Anne Lund told a really fascinating story that even today I'm still fascinated with. And we kind of roundtabled it a little bit because it was more along the lines of a timeline shift. And it was just funny that when she told that story on that particular day, that night, I too experienced a timeline shift with my wife. So she has another one for us. And we tried to get Sunset Child on here, but it's a 30-year anniversary. So we figured that was a little bit more important than coming on this show. So Sunset Child will not be here. But we do wish her a very happy anniversary. And if you want to become friends with her, she still hasn't gotten a business page like we asked her to. So she's just using her Facebook page under Sunset Child. She's more than happy to take you in as a friend and show you around. So who we have with us is Anne Lund, who has another story for us. And even more exciting, we have Elaine from Arcane Oracle. So welcome, ladies, to the show again. And I'm looking forward to this whole exciting story that we have here, Anne.
Okay. Okay. So this story it's kind of short. It's a very strange story. So it starts off kind of sad. I had a dear friend who was in hospice care. And this happened during COVID. So we didn't see each other a lot, but we were on the phone. I would say maybe like once a week. But I didn't, even though she was in hospice care, I didn't realize she was as sick as she was. So at this point of the story, she was at the end of her journey into transitioning. So she had called me and obviously I wanted to go visit her. So I went to visit her at the hospital. So if any of you are familiar with New York City, Langone Hospital, I forget where it is, but it's in Manhattan, obviously. There's a giant statue of a dog in the front of the hospital. I want to say it's 4 stories high. It's huge. And it's a black and white dog. And I happen to have a black and white dog. So it's a Dalmatian, actually. So it's the same type of a dog. So when I went into the hospital to see her, the hospice nurse met me outside and said to me, "When's the last time you spoke with, your friend?" And I had said, 2 days ago. And she's like, "Well, she stopped talking." And she's very much unresponsive. But when you go in there, um, she's she won't have her eyes open. She won't move her head. She doesn't move anymore. But the last sense that we know, because she was hospice nurse, that leaves is her sense of hearing. So just talk to her as if she hears you, because I can almost guarantee you she's going to be able to hear you and she'll hear everything you say, but she's just not going to respond. And even if she doesn't look at you or turn her head or any facial gestures, she does hear you. So I said, fine. So I went in there and it was kind of awkward. I don't know if anybody ever gone to anyone in hospice, but like it's hard to have a conversation with someone who's not responding. And just like she said, she was just laying there, not saying anything, not any kind of expression whatsoever, even notice that I was there. Her eyes were closed, what have you. So I thought, to be funny, I would make a joke about this dog that was out on the front of the hospital, the statue, because I should preface this, she was obsessed with my dog. So whenever she came to my house, she adored my dog. We were Facebook friends. She was commenting on my dog, yada, yada, yada. So one of the things I said to her was, "Oh, I said, it's interesting. It figures that if you were going to find a hospital, you'd find one with a giant spot. Let's say my dog's name is Spot, which it's not, on the front." And she turned her head, didn't open her eyes, and she smiled. So I know that was affirmation to me that she heard me. But then that was it. That was the only, I was there for maybe an hour and a half. And that was the only time she ever let on that she knew I was there. So that's the story. So I go home that night, and for some reason, I don't know, maybe to go to the bathroom, whatever. I woke up in the middle of the night. I want to say 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and I couldn't go back to sleep. So I did what a lot of people do. I went on my phone, and the first thing I did was check my social media. And at that time, do you know the stories on social media when you post a story and then it goes on and then it disappears and you can't see it again? Like if
Right.
somebody, like we would just, now it posts on your timeline so you could see it. But at that time, when somebody posted a story, you see it and then it ran for the 10 seconds and then it disappeared and then you couldn't see it anymore. You couldn't even go to the person's page to see it. So when I turned on my phone to check my social media, I was shocked that there was a picture of the dog from the front of the hospital, from the hospital. It was the actual hospital dog, the statue. And it was her. She had posted it. Okay. So I smiled. I'm like, oh my gosh, she must be doing better. Like she must be up, and she just posted this picture, whatever. And then I went to her page, and of course, there was nothing there. And I think the last post on her page was something from like a week ago, whatever, when she was still like talking and whatever. Thought nothing of it. Um, fell asleep, wake up in the morning and check my social media again. And the first thing I did was go to her page. And on her page, it was the classic Heaven Gained an Angel last night. This people posting on her page that she had passed. And then I went to her husband's page and he posted this whole thing that she had passed overnight. So now that's my story. Now, just to add a little bit of I think this is a crisis apparition personally. But what happened was her husband, as it would have it, ended up dating another friend of our mutual friend. And they're kind of, they're dating, like seriously dating, steady, so to speak. And I had called him the day that she passed away. And of course, I wasn't going to ask him this, right? This is like the last thing I was going to ask him. But then I ended up going on a double date like 2 years later with him and my friend, my other friend. And at dinner, I was like trying to muster up the courage to kind of ask something along those lines. So I basically said to him, listen, the last day when she was in the hospital, by any chance, did she come out? Did she talk? Because they say sometimes people come out and, the last moments of life, they seem like they are getting their courage back, their strength back, whatever. And he said, no, she never came out. And then I asked him if she had her cell phone. And he thought that was an odd question. And I kind of told him what I just told you. And of course, this is what always happens. You get this like face. And that's why I don't even tell people anymore. He did believe me, but I don't know. So anyway, that's my story. Very quick, very odd. I still have no explanation for it. I know what I saw. And I actually have a screenshot of that picture because when I was at the hospital, I took the same picture that she posted, like, because I thought it was funny because it looked just like my dog. So anyway, that's my story.
Well, you definitely shocked me again with another fantastic, fantastic story. And yeah, I have my thoughts on that. But Elaine, I want to turn to you. Uh, what are your thoughts? How do you feel about this crisis apparition, timeline shift? What's your thoughts on this?
Well, I am inclined to agree with Anne that probably an example of a crisis, what we would call a crisis apparition. However, I'm sure that Anne would also agree that it's not necessary. The word crisis apparition is kind of an umbrella term. It's not necessarily a crisis all the time. I mean, they do appear, of course, in moments of danger or distress. I apologize for background noise. But I forget the technical term in folklore, if it's a final visitation, if that's also an interchangeable term with crisis apparition. But yes, I would agree with Anne that it is one of those experiences where whenever a spirit, a soul, is transitioning from the living dimension into the hereafter, um, it's been widely reported, various different reports, cases, personal experiences all over the world, that there is this tendency to contact, to say goodbye to the most important people in their lives as they go.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that. And just from hearing this story, man, I really wish Sunset Child was here.
I can tell you what she said. I mean,
That would be great. Yeah. What did Sunset Child when you told her this?
um, so she is very much into like these timeline shifts, and that in some timeline, she didn't pass away. In some timeline that her and I are involved in, was very much alive at that time, and she was just sending me like she was putting it on her story just to kind of let me know she was okay. Like, so I'm fine, like that's fine. That was a very funny thing you did when you mentioned the dog. Ha ha ha. How's your dog? So she sees it as that. I see it as, and I do agree with Elaine, like crisis apparition is kind of like, it makes it sound like somebody's in crisis. I think when you transition, you're not necessarily always in crisis. I think my friend was prepared to transition because when I spoke with her, a few days earlier, she had accepted the fact and she was comfortable with it. But to me, I see it as she was giving me a thank you for coming. Yes, that does look like your dog. That was very funny. You made me smile. And I'm acknowledging and I'm passing on. I'm just saying goodbye. The only way I can say goodbye at this point, you know.
Mm.
So, but Sunset saw it as a different timeline. If she's still alive, and that would be nice.
I gotcha. So, Elaine, what do you think about that? Do you feel that it could have also been a timeline shift?
Well, anything is possible, and my knowledge as far as timeline shifts is limited compared to what I know about um, paranormal and supernatural experiences, as far as the more traditional ghost story or uh, encounter with the spirit world side of things. But it does sound, from what Anne described, it does sound like the classic story of a final visitation.
Mm.
And that the Facebook story, I know I've had personal experiences. I won't unpack all that right here, but I've heard time and again, and I'm sure you both have as well, of signs right after a loved one has passed, of some sort of signal that's
Mhm.
like I still exist. I am still here. And perhaps that story, it's sort of like, in yesteryear, oftentimes it was a phone call in the middle of the night.
Mhm.
You can't really prove that it happened. Maybe you're not even sure personally that it really happened. Maybe you dreamed it. Maybe it was a grief hallucination or something like that. That's what a lot of people say after they've had those kind of experiences. Or something's moved around in the grieving person's environment, or the smell of a person's perfume or cologne, out of nowhere. Their favorite bird appearing in the window.
Right.
It's phenomenon of after someone we love or after someone that was close to us passes. It's like they're thoughtful enough in the spirit world to send the living a calling card, just a confirmation. I'm still here. It's okay. I made it. I crossed over. And that's what it sounds like to me, all of it put together. But then again, I'm a little bit ignorant of timeline shifts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can agree. So here's just my take on this, because I can agree with the timeline shift, and it's not so much that I'm connected well with Sunset Child on this, but I will say this: there's always going to be that timeline, because, like we discussed even in our last one, timelines and tapestries, that there's always going to be always numerous timelines. So your friend is both alive and well. She's passed on. So all of that's existing, all on different levels and on different planes, no matter what happened. So I think that's the key as far as being able to transmit something electronically or whatever it may be that people can do, because they are on another timeline. So yes, I hold credence to the timeline thing. However, it's just it's a little bit too much of a personal message, you know? That's the other thing, like, you're talking about the dog that looks like your dog, which you told her when you spoke to her last. That's a very, very personal message, and I do believe, yeah, crisis apparition or whatever, I mean, just an apparition itself, because I think we can manifest ourselves into any form, and I think even electronically, which is probably a lot easier because, from what I understand, a lot of, like, ghost apparitions, they use that power in electronics, especially, they harness that power.
Mhm.
They're able to do, certain things and manipulate certain things. So I'm right in between both of them, but I do believe it was more or less an apparition sending you a message. But again, the only way to really do that is, again, we're always, even me, I'm not alive right now in a different timeline, but I'm alive in this one. And, that's where a lot of this communication comes from, I feel. Um, so I'm, like I said, I'm right in between, right in the middle on that one. And I hate to, not be so definitive with that, but that's just what I feel. I really think that it was, though, a very personal message. And I don't think it could have just been any apparition or anything like that. It was your friend. It was coming from a spiritual realm. But again, that spiritual realm could have been coming from that other timeline.
Yeah. And
That
I've
helps.
actually, like, I've entertained the possibility in the past, like that, maybe I just dreamt it, but I think, we've had this conversation before. I meditate every day, twice a day, like religiously. Um, and I mean, maybe I'm sure you've heard of, people that can kind of get out of their bodies when they meditate and do things like that, which I don't think I can do that. I've had one experience where I think I may have, but I've learned when I meditate because your meditations could be so vivid, to let myself know when it's an actual physical thing as opposed to like I'm in my mind. And what I'll do is if I can feel my hands, then I know that it's the physical world, right? Like, and so that night, well, part of me was thinking about them, like, am I dreaming this? Is like she literally on her phone? And that was one of the things I did. I gave myself a test and I was like, no, I can feel my hands. I'm awake. I'm definitely awake. Like I do this regularly now because I meditate a lot. Sometimes it's hard. The line between being what's like physical and what's on the other side it's really thin.
Mhm,
So I've thought about that, but I know I was awake. I'm sure I was awake.
mhm,
So, and it was very personal because it was the only thing that I spoke to her where she seemed like she heard me, because the rest of the time she was just laying there. She wasn't moving. She just was like if you walked into someone's room when they're sleeping. It was
mhm.
the only time she acknowledged me was the comment on the dog. So it's kind of interesting. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely interesting indeed. Elaine, do you want to add anything to that?
That was a beautiful story, and, thank you for sharing that with us. That was a really it was a really moving story of a transition, and whether it was a timeline shift or a final visitation, a crisis apparition, um, it does sound like a blessing and an honor to have experienced that with another soul at any rate, and it was certainly great to hear that story.
You're welcome. It was a nice moment for sure. Shocking, but nice at the same time. It doesn't scare me. It's a nice memory, I guess I could say, that in my heart I feel like was real. So yeah.
Well, perfect. I'm enjoying these little group chats that we've been doing. I think we're going to be doing these a lot more because I got so much more on the table for Eye Opener Society. But I want to thank Anne Lund. And remember, she's with Haunted and Waiting, and you could go to hauntedandwaiting.blog and check out her actual blogs. And we're still waiting for her book to come out. I can't wait to be the first one to get a copy. Just a little hint there. And I also want to thank Elaine from Arcane Oracle. Remember, you could listen. Whenever she's got that opportunity to put out those episodes, they're absolutely amazing. I look forward to it because I use it as guidance for the coming month. They've been so accurate, the predictions with the horoscopes and the tarot readings, and she's doing it for free. But don't forget, you could go to elainesarcanetarot.com if you want to book a reading that's personal to you, not just a general reading. Definitely check out that website as well. I'm going to put links to everything on here. I want to say thank you. Elaine, thank you though, really, for showing up tonight on this here episode. It's really good to have you. And I'm hoping we could get another group podcast chat like this again.
Well,
It'll be
thank you so
fun.
much for having me, and I really enjoyed it.
Great. And Anne Lund, thank you so very much. It's really good to hear these stories from you, and I'm waiting for the next episode that you have coming out. And in the meantime, don't forget, everybody, you could check out all of our episodes. And right now, I'm on every platform including our own eyeopenersociety.podbean.com. And I'm also working on YouTube. I'm just trying to build up an audience with that. I've been doing these smaller, like 2-minute podcasts that deal with mindfulness, meditation, thoughts that are on my mind. And I'm going to be expanding that. And we're going to be working with Appalachian roots, rooted in ruins. They're out of Kentucky. So if you want to do me a favor, and I hate doing this, but times, it gets difficult. But if you go to Buy Me a Coffee and you search Eye Opener Society, so Buy Me a Coffee /Eye Opener Society, you could donate to the show. We're using that to build this platform a little bit more so I could get on the road and start visiting a lot of these metaphysical shops in person. So I'm thinking that's going to be really exciting for the audience too as well. So Buy Me a Coffee /Eye Opener Society, eyeopenersociety.podbean.com. Don't forget to listen to Anne Lund's Haunted and Waiting and read her blogs at hauntedandwaiting.blog. And don't forget Elaine's arcanetarot.com if you want to book your own readings. And she offers so many other services, and she's extremely affordable. And you can listen to her podcast, Elaine's Arcane Oracle. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we will see you again really soon.